What will happen to my pet? What will happen to my dog when the rapture happens? Will Jesus take my dog with me, or will my dog be left here to suffer the wrath of God? Well, actually, this is quite a legitimate question, and there are, in fact, many opinions out there among Christians and even non-Christians. In fact, I found it somewhat laughable that in the United States of America, there are so-called non-profit organizations. They provide after-rapture care for the pets of the Christians who will be raptured. Can you believe that? There are organizations like that. They sincerely believe that there will one day be a rapture and Christians will be taken, and therefore the animals of the Christians will be left unattended, and therefore these atheists started atheist organizations to take care of the animals of the Christians who will be taken out at the rapture. They don't seem to be concerned about their own soul, but they're concerned about the well-being of the animals of the Christians who will be raptured. I found it laughable because in the Bible we read very clearly, Jesus himself talked about it actually, that God is the provider of life. God is the sustainer, giver and sustainer of life. In fact, God makes sure no animal goes hungry. Even the birds of the air, they never work, they never toil, they never make money or save money, but they always have food. God looks after his own creation. God doesn't need a bunch of atheists to take care of animals after the rapture. But let me get back to the question. Again, as I said earlier, there are 4 major passages in the Bible regarding rapture. That is John chapter 14 verses 1 to 3. Secondly, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 51 to 58. Thirdly, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verses 13 to 18. And fourthly, Revelation chapter 4 verse 1. Neither of these chapters talk about animals in rapture. But there are other passages in the Bible that give us a very clear biblical information about what will happen to animals at the time of rapture, or even to the pets of Christians at the time of rapture. First of all, we must understand the biblical concept that God created only mankind in his own image, not animals. Animals are not created in the image of God. Only people are created in the image of God. We find this truth in Genesis chapter 1 and verses 27 to 28. God created only man as man and woman in 2 opposite sexes in his own image. Then God also created the plant world and animal world to be subjugated to the man, and God gave authority and dominion to man over the plants and the animals. So that is a biblical fact we need to keep in our mind as we are discussing this subject. Secondly, the subject matter of God's salvation plan is not animals, nor is it plants. It's the human beings. It's the people. It's the people who rebelled against God. It's the people who strayed away from God, as we read in Romans chapter 3 verse 23 and chapter 6 verse 23. It is the people who rebelled against God. It is the people who receive the rightful punishment for rebelling against God. And it is the people, it is the human that God sent Jesus Christ to die on the cross to save. Again, we must remember, Jesus Christ did not come to the world in the form of an animal. He came to the world in the form of a man, although he is God, because he came to save mankind from their sinful condition and from the wrath of God. So these are all very important biblical fundamental truths that we need to keep in mind as we discuss the subject of rapture and animals. Then Genesis chapter 7 verse 6 to 10, we read that during the flood, God redeemed a pair of all animals. Now, based on this argument, there are people out there, they argue at the time of rapture, God will rapture all the animals, or God will rapture the pets of the Christians. There are these people who argue that out there. And their argument is largely based on what happened at the time of flood. Some of them even argue that at the time of the Exodus, when the Jewish people left Egypt in their journey to the land of Canaan, they took all their possessions and animals. So therefore, at the time of rapture, Christians will be raptured with their animals. So unfortunately, these arguments, at the surface level, they may look like they are based on biblical facts, but they are void of good theology. Now, there is one more passage. The people who believe in the animal rapture, they argue that, they use that verse in their argument. That is John chapter 4 verse 11. Jonah chapter 4 verse 11. They say that God really loves animals. God didn't want to destroy Nineveh, and God's argument was that there are all these thousands of people in Nineveh and there are all these many animals. True, God loves animals. God loves all his creation because God created all of this. God loves even the most vicious sinner in the world because God created him. God loves all of us. God is the God of love. We read it throughout the whole Bible. But remember, rapture is first and foremost. Rapture is an incident in which Jesus Christ is coming to fetch his bride. Now remember that. Rapture is the moment at which Jesus will come to fetch his bride. In other words, it is the moment of reunion between Jesus and the church. Jesus is coming to fetch his bride. Where do we find that? We find it in one of the most important rapture passages in the Bible. That is John chapter 14, verse 1 to 3. What did Jesus say there? Let's just go straight to that verse and read it as it stands. John chapter 14, Jesus is giving us the first prophetic word about rapture. Jesus said, John chapter 14, "Don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many rooms. If not, I would have told you. I'm going away to prepare a place for you. If I go away and prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you may also be." You know the way. As we read in this passage, in these words of Jesus, rapture is the incident in which Jesus is coming for his bride, for his people, those who believe in him. And in this discussion of Jesus, definitely there is no reference to animals. First and foremost, animals are not the bride of Jesus Christ, only the people. God created only people in his own image, not the animals. So to think or to make a theology of the rapture of animals during the time of rapture, I find it outrageous. I find it absolutely unbiblical. I don't find biblical basis for that. We are a non-profit, independent, and non-denominational Christian ministry organization. Please consider supporting this ministry with your donations.